Um, I always start off just asking people to introduce themselves, how they got in the business. Can you introduce yourself and explain how you got into the business?
I'm Ricky Reyes, one half of the Havana Pit Bulls. I got into the business just wanting to be a wrestler basically my whole life. Wrestled in high school and went to School of Hard Knocks in San Bernardino, California, and just started training there about 7 years ago.
How hard was it to train to become a wrestler?
For me, it wasn't very hard. So I wrestled amateur wrestling for about 3 years. So a lot of the things, the tumbling and a lot of the techniques I already learned through amateur wrestling. So it wasn't very hard as far as like learning techniques of pro wrestling. So it was very similar.
Jesse Hernandez runs that school, right?
Yeah.
Like he's trained a lot of pretty successful wrestlers like Jericho, I think, and some other guys. Am I right?
Yeah.
Like, were you training with anybody else down there that really got a break? Or?
I arrived there when Louis Spicoli had just left. Suicide Kid Mikey Henderson was training at the time, along with Chris Daniels. So they were basically my teachers, Chris Daniels and Mikey Henderson, when I first started.
Like what indie promotions do you wrestle for, and which one is your favorite?
I try to get around as much as possible. I wrestle for PWG, Ring of Honor, NWA Florida, just pretty much everywhere, IWA Mid-South, a lot of different promotions on the indie circuit. My favorite by far is Ring of Honor, though. It's everybody works hard. The locker room is awesome. Everyone's shooting for the same goal to make the entire show just hot. No egos in the back. No problems as far as things like that. So it's really fun to work there. It's a privilege to work there. It really is.
What do you feel has been your best match in ROH?
Best match? My favorite match would be myself, Rocky, and Homicide against the Briscoe brothers and Samoa Joe. I think it was about July last year. We were main eventing. I think it was Honor by Glory or something like that. But it was our big show at in the New Jersey Rexplex. We went like 35 minutes of just like beating the living crap out of each other. So it was awesome.
And last night you wrestled P.D. Williams. What's it like wrestling P.D. Williams?
It was fun. I had a great time. PD's a very talented wrestler. It was very enjoyable to wrestle with him. Can't say anything bad. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I asked that just because I also got footage of him, so it makes no sense. So, was it your dream to be a wrestler since you were a kid, or?
So I was 7 years old. I knew I wanted to be a pro wrestler. Didn't want to do anything else. Nothing else mattered in life to me except being a pro wrestler.
Like, what was your dream when you were a little kid?
Just to be a pro wrestler. It's every chance I ever got to watch wrestling or read a wrestling magazine or anything that had to do with pro wrestling, I was on it. So I knew that nothing else would satisfy me in life except pro wrestling. So.
Did you like dress up like the Ultimate Warrior and run around with like bands around your arms?
Sometimes, yeah. When I was really small, I did. I think everybody does that. Me and my brother beat the crap out of each other and get yelled at for wrestling and breaking things in the house, breaking things in my grandma's house wrestling. So, I think every kid, every person does that.
What would you say is like what you want to accomplish in the industry now? What is your goals?
My goals as far as right now is concerned is to establish myself as a star in Japan for 01 Max. I'm working on right now getting my visa renewed to get back to 01, which had just expired on July 5th, and looking for a AWA Junior World Title match, and right now I just want to establish myself there as a star, and hopefully frequently travel back and forth to Japan, back to ROH, and as far as that right now, I'm not looking for WWE. I would say for at least another maybe 5 years or so. No hurry to get there. So just having fun is the most important thing. And sometimes it feels like you rush into something and then it doesn't become fun. It becomes work, and then you're in too deep and you can't get out of it for financial reasons. And I see a lot of my friends stuck in situations that they're not happy with due to that. So I just want to have fun. As long as this is fun to me, I'll keep doing it. The day it's not, it will be the day I quit.
What's it like in Japan, like touring on the bus and everything? Like, have you been on like a really long tour that was just draining, or what was it like? 'Cause it's not as hard as it sounds.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I remember my first tour to Japan. We did 16 shows in 30 days, and it was actually a military-based tour that we traveled to Japan and Korea, all over Asia, and it was really rough. Every other day, flying or on 8-9 hour bus trips. Couldn't get to a gym, couldn't get enough sleep. Had to work on rings that weren't wrestling rings, boxing rings. There was even one show where there was no ring and there was a big giant wrestling mat. And then that was for a company here in the U.S. that did a tour overseas. Then a year later, I went for New Japan, which I was on a 3-week long series, including the Tokyo Dome, which I wrestled in, the Spiral 2002, October 14th. And that was very grueling. Every other day, back on the bus, you get to one city, you unpack in the hotel, you rest, you eat, you go to sleep, wake up, back on the bus, wrestle every day, same thing. It's very grueling. It's very hard.
How would you compare like the fans and the style of wrestling in Japan as compared to here?
Fans in Japan are very educated on the technique of pro wrestling. They look at it more of a sport as opposed to entertainment. They see like sumo wrestlers and pro wrestlers as at the same level. So pro wrestling there is appreciated more as a sport. So it's very enjoyable. The fans are very knowledgeable. Like, they know who you are before you get there. They actually do a lot of research. To some degree, fans in the U.S. some fans are like that, but not as many. And you get some fans that would rather take away from the show and take away from what the wrestlers are doing to have the focus on them, as opposed to just appreciating all the hard work that we do in the ring and all the sacrifices that we make. So to some degree, it's a little bit better wrestling in Japan at times, and then sometimes it's not.
Like when you say that, like what you're talking about, like when the fans heckle the wrestlers in the ring.
Yeah, you always got that group of smartasses in the ring or in the fans, that like to say certain things, and it's like, sometimes I feel it's uncalled for, because if they could do better, then why aren't they in there doing it? Instead, they're the ones buying the tickets, watching us. So in the end, we win.
How do you feel the internet's affected the business?
In all honesty, I couldn't tell you. Some good, some bad. There's a lot of positives and negatives. I mean, I'm not an internet type person, so I couldn't really say. It's kind of cool because you go to some like when I go to places I've never been to, because of the internet, they know who I am. So to some degree, it's kind of good. And then then you got guys that are overrated because of the internet, and that's bad. So there's negatives and positives to it, and I don't really worry about that kind of crap. I just go out and wrestle, try to have the best wrestling match I could possibly have with my opponent, and that's all I'm concerned about.
In in a typical indie show, I'm not really thinking like ROH or anything like that, but like in other indies, is there like politics backstage on that level of professional wrestling, or is it just really simple? The booker tells you who goes over and that's it?
I wouldn't say it's like I said, in ROH, I don't think there's very many politics. Like I said, in ROH, everybody works for the best possible show, and there's been times where Rocky and myself would main event, in front of 1,500 people, and then the very next week, we'd be the opening match, and what it all comes down to is like it really doesn't matter. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Go out there and do your best, have the best wrestling match you can have, and who cares? Like, politics and who goes over and this and that. It's all a bunch of crap. It's just like go out, wrestle, have fun while you're doing it. Don't worry about who's winning or stuff like that. It's like at the end of the night, if you had a good wrestling match, the crowd is going to appreciate the good wrestling match. If it's that good, they're not going to care who won.
Like, what's your opinion of backyard wrestling? Did you ever do that when you were younger? Or?
No. I don't know much of it. I've met a few guys that have claimed that they've done backyard wrestling. I know a lot of promoters frown upon, backyarders. I've actually been asked to wrestle some of them and make sure that they do not return. So I don't approve of it. I heard a lot of people get hurt and stuff and do crazy things and stuff like that. But I mean, whatever. If that's what they want to do and they want to hurt themselves, then that's on them, So whatever.
Like this past week, like it took 20 guys lost their job up in WWE. Like, do you and other guys that are looking to move up in their careers, do you feel like it's a time to possibly look at starting a union, or is that nothing you guys even think about?
Wow, that's the first I've ever heard of that. I don't know how to comment on that. That would be nice, I guess, to some degree, but I have confidence in myself and my ability to know that I can still be valuable to a company regardless of who gets released, and who wants to come in, because I can pretty much wrestle with anybody. So I really don't know how to comment as far as that is concerned. I know a lot of guys, they lose their jobs and then they go to Japan and they go to other places, Ring of Honor, TNA, places like that. But that's just the way the business is. You just got to keep moving forward. Can't worry about this guy got released, so he's gonna take my job, because if you're good enough, you don't have to worry about that. And if he does, then so what? Go get another job. If you're good enough, you go somewhere else and work somewhere else.
What's your dream match and storyline if you had to like build up your own thing? Like, what would you want to do?
I don't know. Since my tag team partner, for right now, my tag team partner is Black Tiger in Japan, for New Japan. And before he separated his shoulder on his last tour, he was supposed to win the Best of Super Juniors tournament, in which my company, 01, his junior champion, was going to wrestle the winner of the Super Juniors. So at the time, I was pitching ideas to have myself and him wrestle each other in Japan for the top junior spot in Japan. So that would have been pretty cool for that. But I don't know. I just like wrestling different wrestlers all the time. So as far as like rivalries or anything like that, just so long as it's fun and hard hitting and exciting, I could pretty much do that with anybody. Just make it interesting to myself, have fun with it.
I always ask wrestlers, if you don't want to answer, it's cool. I asked, like, in the past, like in the old school wrestling days, there was like a lot of drug abuse and everything, which I don't think it's like prevalent really as much anymore in the industry, like on the indie level so much. Maybe on like the big leagues it is, but like, how do you feel the drug abuse has affected the industry?
Drug abuse is bad in any industry, and we've lost a lot of friends and a lot of great people to drug abuse, and obviously it's a horrible thing, but it's not as much now. I think everybody is looking to be a lot more professional, as opposed to back in the day where you had guys doing a lot of things they shouldn't have been doing in locker rooms and after and before matches and stuff like that. But what anybody does is on them, and I just worry about myself and my friends and stuff like that, and just try to work hard.
Have you ever had a rib pulled on you, or have you pulled any funny ribs?
Let's see. Not too many have been pulled on me. Nothing too good. Like, I do remember one time I was in Korea, and a friend of mine who used to wrestle years ago when we first started coming up had this bottle of cologne, and it was like a yellowish color. So myself and another guy that used to wrestle a long time ago, everyone except Eric Matlock was involved in this rib. There's 2 guys that retired already. Me and my friend broke into my other friend's room. Just did like, deep heat in his underwear and stuff like that. Just stupid stuff. Messed with his bag, tied his shoelaces together, whatever. Just a bunch of stupid crap. So when we were leaving, my friend was like, oh, hey, look at his cologne. So I grabbed the cologne, I poured it out, and I peed in it. So when I peed in it, I put it back, and it looked exactly like the cologne. So a couple hours later, Eric Matlock and my friend came back from this party. So they came to my room and woke me up, and then were telling me about these girls as they supposedly were going to hook up with. So I'm sitting there in their room talking, and my friend Sonny is the guy I was trying to play the rib on. Well, Eric asked, what cologne is that? And my friend Sonny told him, oh, I don't even use it. I just brought it along for the hell of it. So Eric grabbed the cologne and started smelling it. And he's like, wow, that smells really good. So I'm biting my lip, trying not to laugh. So Eric goes, do you mind if I put some on? And he had just a wife beater on. And he goes, no, you could have it if you want it. So he's like, oh, cool. So he opens it up and pours the piss all over his hand and wipes it around and goes, man, that smells good. And the whole time I'm just dying, like sitting like way in the back of the room, just like ready to cry. So I get up and I'm like, oh boy, am I tired. I'm going to go to sleep now. So I left and I went to my other friend's room, and we laughed for like 2 hours straight. Then the next day we were catching the bus to go to the airport. We had a show in Hawaii like the very next day. And we were talking about that, and it was so funny. Like, I just couldn't stop laughing. Like, my friend went up to him, and he was like, hey, Eric, what's that smell? And he's like, oh, man, Sonny let me have his cologne, and it smells good. And he was just putting it over like it was the greatest thing ever. So he found out about it and got all pissed off. And when we got back to the States, I had a sunroof in my car, and he thought it'd be funny to pour a big gulp through my sunroof into my seat, and then said, hey, I'll meet you at Denny's or whatever after practice. So, I went, finished my practice, and came out and opened my car up, and there's, fucking Slurpee and shit all in my fucking seat. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So I drove on the Slurpee all the way over there. And all right, got it. He got me back, whatever. So that's about it. That was probably my funniest rib. Everything else has been like petty shit, like, throwing people's bags out the window or out the door or something, or tying people's shoes together, so when they grab their shoes, like 10 pairs of shoes follow them. Stupid shit.
What's the funniest thing or craziest thing, like, you've been in the ring and had happen to you, or you did to somebody else?
I don't know. I don't have too many of those moments. My matches are always pretty serious, so I can't really remember. I know we were beating up this one. We were in Parker, Arizona one time, and this was like 6 years ago. And the promoter was banging this dude's mom, and like they were getting the tag belts from us that night, and the kid didn't deserve to have the tag belts, so we thought it'd be funny to just beat the crap out of him. And like it was like a 3-way tag team match for our tag belts, and me, Rocky, my friend Eric, and his tag team partner beat the crap out of this kid. And like the whole time he's like I power bombed him off, I was sitting on the top rope, on the top turnbuckle. My friend Eric sat him up, and he's like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing here? And we're like, sit up or you'll die. And he like sat up, and I power bombed him off the top rope, and then we pick him up and like German suplex him, and then we gave him we just beat the crap out of this kid, and he was so scared. Like every time we grab him, he's shaking. He's like, what are we doing next? And we're like, shut up, and smack the shit out of him. And we beat this kid up. But if anything funny like that ever happens, it's something like that, like beating somebody up or having somebody really scared before they go out to the match. It's funny.
Have you ever had a match where you were just wrestling kind of stiff and then it got really stiff, like almost a legit fight to a point?
Closest I've ever had to not a legit fight, but probably the hardest hitting match I've ever had was me and Samoa Joe worked one-on-one in Philadelphia. And it's not that we dislike each other, it's just our styles. He's, a huge, guy, and ROH world champion, and we had this heated feud going with the Rottweilers, and then him representing like ROH. So like me and him finally met one-on-one, and it wasn't it wasn't that it was going to be like a shoot, like we were going to start like legit hurting each other. It's just like, if I smack him and he brings that big paw from left field and just gloms me, it's like I got to hit him like 3 times, to make up for it. So it's like every time he'd hit me one, I'd wait, come to, and then just like unload on him. So that was probably my hardest hitting match I've ever had, was wrestling Samoa Joe, because he's just a monster. Like anyone could vouch for that. So.